when you look at the Quran, you need to unpack and you need to look at the two different areas of revelation, or the two different periods of revelation, which are referred to the two different cities where the prophet lived. From Mecca, and that would refer from the years 610 up until 622, those 13 lunar years that he lived in Mecca, then moving on to Medina when he moved up in the Hijrah in 622 up until 632 when he died, the last 10 years. And when you look at these two different periods of revelation, you will see that the revelation changes. In Mecca, it's a very peaceful environment. Muhammad was not a statesman, he was only a prophet. And as a prophet, he had certain responsibilities, and those responsibilities did not include the state. He was a minority in his own town. And as such, the revelations that were received, they reflect that environment. And when you look at the Meccan surahs, there's not an awful lot that we would disagree as Christians when we read the Meccan surahs. They focus around the end times. They focus around the monotheism, the idea that God is one. But then when he moved to Medina in 622, he then took on a different role. He became a statesman besides a prophet and statesman. Very similar to what Moses did, who also was in the business of creating a theocratic state and then maintaining that theocratic state. And in order to do that, the responsibilities of state then included violence, including use of the sword. So when he moved to Medina, because of those added responsibilities, the statesmen, and also certainly the responsibilities of state, you can see that the revelations change. And so when you look at the Medinan surahs, the longer surahs, the material that's primarily at the front of the Quran, the first, mostly at the front, you can see that there is an awful lot of violence in those verses. Now, Shabir will say, and rightly so, that he had to. That was one of the artifices, that was one of the needs of the state, and I would agree with them. There is an awful lot of violence when you're creating a theocratic state. But that's not to say that there is not violence in the Bible. There is violence in the Bible. And almost all of it is in the Old Testament. We've got to deal with the violence in the Old Testament. And I'll put my hands up and I will admit, I'll be the first to admit, Shabir, that the violence in the Old Testament is much greater than the violence in the Quran.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
And I'll put my hands up and I will admit, I'll be the first to admit, Shabir, that the violence in the Old Testament is much greater than the violence in the Quran. I'll be the first to admit that. It is much greater. It's horrendous violence. In Joshua chapter 6, verse 20, where Joshua commands the people to go in and kill all men, women, and children, even live animals. We don't see references like that in the Quran.